The relationship between the United States and China has long been characterized by a complex interplay of cooperation and competition. For decades, the two economic giants maintained a relatively stable trade relationship, fueled by China's role as the world's factory and America's insatiable consumer demand. However, underneath the surface of this economic interdependence simmered deeper geopolitical tensions. The U.S., accustomed to its position as the world's sole superpower, grew increasingly wary of China's meteoric rise. China's expanding economic might, coupled with its growing military capabilities and assertive foreign policy, stoked anxieties in Washington. The U.S. began to view China not just as an economic competitor, but as a strategic rival, challenging its global dominance. This shift in perception set the stage for a new era of U.S.-China relations, one marked by suspicion, rivalry, and a steady erosion of trust. The simmering tensions finally erupted into the open with the Trump administration's decision to impose tariffs on Chinese goods, igniting a trade war that continues to reverberate through the global economy. This economic conflict is about much more than just tariffs or trade deficits. It is a high-stakes battle for global economic supremacy, a contest to determine who will write the rules of the 21st century global order. The opening salvo in this economic confrontation came in 2018 when the Trump administration imposed tariffs on billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods, citing unfair trade practices and intellectual property theft. China swiftly retaliated with tariffs of its own, targeting key American exports like soybeans and automobiles. This marked the beginning of a tit-for-tat tariff war that escalated rapidly over the next few years. In 2025, the conflict reached new heights. On April 9th, Liberation Day in China, the U.S. announced a 34% tariff increase on all Chinese goods, bringing the total U.S. increase to a staggering 125% since the start of the Trump administration. China responded in kind, imposing its own 34% tariff increase on U.S. goods. This escalation of tariffs sent shockwaves through the global economy. Businesses on both sides of the Pacific felt the pain as supply chains were disrupted, costs soared, and uncertainty gripped the markets. The tariff war also had a ripple effect on other countries, as the U.S. imposed tariffs on allies like the EU, Japan, and Korea, further complicating the geopolitical landscape. China enters this economic battle from a position of strength, but also facing significant challenges. Its economy, though still formidable, has lost some of its momentum in recent years. After decades of breakneck growth, China's economy is slowing down, with growth rates hovering around 5%, a far cry from the double-digit figures of the past. The Chinese government is acutely aware of these challenges and has been actively pursuing a strategy of economic rebalancing. Recognizing the limitations of its export-dependent growth model, China is attempting to shift its economy towards domestic consumption and innovation. This involves moving up the value chain, investing heavily in technology, and fostering the growth of its domestic consumer market. Despite these efforts, China faces headwinds. The country is grappling with rising unemployment, particularly among young people, and a widening wealth gap. The COVID-19 pandemic also took a toll on the Chinese economy, disrupting supply chains and dampening consumer demand. The U.S. economy, while still the largest in the world, is also facing its own set of challenges. The national debt has ballooned to unprecedented levels, limiting the government's fiscal flexibility. Inflation, a long-dormant threat, has reared its head, eroding consumer purchasing power and fueling economic anxiety. The U.S. is also grappling with the consequences of its own trade policies. While the tariffs imposed on Chinese goods were intended to protect American jobs and industries, they have also contributed to higher prices for consumers and businesses. The trade war has also strained relations with key allies, who view the U.S. actions as protectionist and disruptive to the global trading system. The Biden administration, which inherited this complex economic landscape, has sought to address some of these challenges through a combination of fiscal stimulus, infrastructure spending, and efforts to strengthen the social safety net. However, the effectiveness of these measures remains to be seen, and the U.S. economy remains vulnerable to external shocks and global economic headwinds. As tensions escalate, China, with its vast economic prowess, begins to strategize. Their response is not impulsive, but rather a calculated move on the global chessboard. they consider their vast network of trade partnerships, the potential impacts on their economy, and the broader geopolitical implications. In this high-stakes game, every decision is weighed, every action meticulously planned. China aims to not just respond, but to redefine the rules of engagement. The world watches closely, anticipating the next move in this intricate dance of power and diplomacy. In the quest for economic dominance, nations often seek leverage to tilt the balance in their favor. They engage in strategic maneuvers, trade negotiations, and at times, confrontations to assert their influence. This dynamic interplay shapes the global economic landscape, with each player striving to outmaneuver the other. Understanding the economic calculus behind these moves is crucial. It's not just about numbers and statistics, it's about the strategies and motivations driving these decisions. By deciphering this complex equation, we gain insights into the broader implications for global trade and economic stability. The potential outcomes of these economic confrontations are varied. Some scenarios could lead to increased cooperation and mutual growth, while others might result in prolonged conflicts and economic stagnation. The future trajectories depend on how these nations navigate the intricate web of economic relationships and policies. Ultimately, the question remains, who will shape the global economy in the coming decades? Will it be the established powers, or will emerging economies rise to prominence? The answer lies in the actions and decisions made today, which will reverberate through the economic landscape for years to come.